From Magna Carta to the envelope republic, the anatomy of a fiscal panopticon. The history of Western democracy is essentially the history of the struggle for the right not to surrender one's labor without a say. The principle no taxation without representation was the cornerstone that transformed subjects into citizens. This implied a social contract. The citizen agreed to part with a portion of their private property only in exchange for the right to control how that money is spent. It was an agreement among equals. I finance protection and justice, but I decide who manages them and how. If representation is absent, taxation turns into robbery. However, this principle has mutated into a grotesque form where fiscal pressure grows in direct proportion to the disappearance of real representation. The historical root: tax is a contract for the free. This ideal, dating back to the Magna Carta, 1215, and the works of John Locke, viewed taxation as a voluntary contribution. Citizens understood that they were paying for collective security and the rule of law. The government, in turn, was held accountable for every coin. Taxation without consent was seen as a violation of fundamental freedom. The great corruption of representation. In many post-transitional societies, this principle was subverted. While the ordinary citizen was struggling for survival, the political class built a closed system of shadow representation. When a representative receives substantial payments in an envelope from a handler or an oligarchic group, they de facto cease to represent the people. They become a hired manager for vested interests. The result: laws are written not for the development of society, but to protect the interests of the shareholders who fill the envelopes. The citizen in this scheme is not a partner, but a free resource whose vote is needed only once every few years to legitimize the scheme. The ideology of eternal crisis as the ultimate shield. Today, we are witnessing the most dangerous stage of this mutation. When the old model of corrupt agreements starts to fail, it is replaced by an ideology of eternal war or permanent crisis. This serves as a perfect shield against accountability. Any question about shadow incomes, bureaucratic inefficiency, or the failed social contract is labeled as unpatriotic or a threat to national security. The Fiscal Panopticon: transparent poor and dark power. This eternal crisis is used to justify the construction of a system of total state surveillance over citizens. Under the guise of transparency, the state demands total financial visibility from the ordinary citizen, taxing every trifle and controlling every movement through digital registers. This is the Fiscal Panopticon. The citizen becomes completely transparent and vulnerable before the state apparatus. Power, with its envelopes, offshore accounts, and closed-door deals, remains in complete shadow. Conclusion. We find ourselves at a point where the classic democratic demand for representation has been replaced by bureaucratic accounting. Proponents of permanent crisis try to convince us that our duty is to pay and remain silent. But history teaches, a state that sees its citizen only as an appendix to a tax invoice and a resource loses its internal strength.